Hey everyone, and welcome back to NintendoFuse Game Chat. Today we're going to be talking about Highwater on Nintendo Switch. The Highwater is a whimsical 3D adventure game with an isometric, turn-based puzzle combat system in a flooded, post-apocalyptic world. You navigate by boat, and you discover islands and allies and battle foes and experience this humorous tale about friendship in this melancholic atmospheric escape. So this is a turn-based 3D game, and it kind of looks like this, watercolor kind of world and this water-filled world. Barry, what'd you think about Highwater?
So I went into this game completely blind. I didn't know what it was. You two actually played it before I did, so I heard just a little bit of snippets from you. And the first thing that got me was the graphics. Like it really sold the atmosphere. It was really cool. And then I had to get used to the boat controls. The boat controls kind of threw me off, but I did get it. And once I got it, I felt better. Like I did feel more comfortable. And for me, the next thing that hit, because you're thrust into this world, is you really don't have a backstory, but then the radio starts playing, and that was so cool because it sets the stage and it kind of gives you this backstory on this world. Like what happened, why is it flooded, what's going on, and you get these snippets of radio in between going to different islands, and I loved it. I thought that was great, especially when factions come in later and it's like, "Oh, you listen to that propaganda radio, you should be listening to our propaganda radio."
Right.
And it's just very humorous and sad and realistic at the same time. And then as an RPG, an adventure gamer, I always like if you tell me to go right, I'm going left. I want to see I want to do everything I can before going where I need to go. And I liked how this had multiple islands and optional islands, and some islands that you go to later but you can go to in advance, and sometimes it's like, well, you need to go get me this. Oh, I already have this because I went and explored, so here you go. And it just this whole world, just the characters are just full of life, and it's really weird. Like there's a wedding and it's like they're all happy and they're like eating, like, just like the weirdest food, and like food is scarce, and the just like don't be out and the thugs are trying to get you. And I just thought the setting in the world was phenomenal, honestly. The combat was interesting. I didn't even know it was going to be a turn-based RPG. I was
Mm.
like, oh, this is new. And I like the environmental puzzles where you could like knock things over onto enemies, or blow things up, and I thought that was really interesting and fun. The combat, definitely was a little harder than I expected too. Like my main character died a couple times while my supplement characters stayed alive, and maybe it was just bad placings. I'm not a big strategy RPG guy, so that kind of threw me for a loop. But it wasn't negative. It's not a negative. It's just something that I had to overcome. and
Hmm.
and the more you pick up, there was one part where you pick up a hitchhiker and they go with you, and then your friend joins and goes, "Who's this?" And he just like tosses them into the ocean. And I'm just like, okay, that person's probably dead now. Cool. But I liked the writing, the humor, the world of this game. It's not perfect. It definitely has some issues. I felt with the combat was a little slow. There was a little bit of loading time, and the
Hmm.
controls take some getting used to. But I can believe this world. It is really neat. Greg, what about you? What do you think?
I actually echo a lot of the same things. I mean, I really did like the story, as you said. Like, it is pretty believable that you kind of go exploring like island to island, and then you meet all sorts of different characters of different needs and wants and desires, and how they're interacting with the world that they find themselves in. Like you said, there's a couple that was trying to get married, and they obviously couldn't have like a very drastic, like high, expensive, extravagant wedding, but it was just kind of they were more dependent on the people that were there, and it was all really cool and very heartfelt and very well written, like as you also alluded to. But um, definitely would have been appreciative of having like the boat controls like having like something to tell you how to do it. I think it was like legit like 5 minutes. I was like, is my controller broken? Is it off? Is it not working? And then eventually just like literally the last buttons I usually hit to see what they do is like the ZL and ZR, and that like actually made you start moving. So it legit took like at least 5 minutes to figure that out. But as you said, then you just kind of know what to do and how the boat maneuvers from there. So that was definitely a learning curve, and there are a lot of ways to at least tell the player like, hey, this is how you move the boat. Like you don't have to like be that handholdy and like, okay, press and hold this for 10 seconds and go to this island and with a big arrow on it. Like you don't have to do anything like that, but just having something just to kind of briefly explain the controls on screen or something would be can go a pretty long way in that regard. But and then even then, I think I even had gone backwards initially, and then like, oh, like you shouldn't go here. Like, so as you were saying, Barry, like you like, explore every end of the world. I didn't mean to start going backwards at the very start of the game, but it was like, oh, shouldn't you go check out this island? And like, well, I thought there might have been more this way because I thought it might have just plopped me in the middle of a map. So I didn't realize that like this was the edge of the map that I'm on. So, that pretty neat how they even like kind of worked some of that kind of stuff into like the humor and stuff into the writing as well too. But it from what I played, it was a lot of fun, and like as you said, like the first turn-based combat just catches completely off guard. Like, oh wait, there's actually more to it than just exploring islands. Like there's actually little battles, and then like after you do like the easy initial battles, then they like start throwing in the environmental things, and then I think it was on like the first environmental one I actually failed a few times because like you had the shield, and then like well I reached the shield, I picked it up, I passed, and then like I still couldn't take them down because they would hit too hard. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll just try to kill them without getting the shield, and then that's the time that I succeeded. So so I guess it's just kind of that training effort just to see that maybe not everything is necessarily needed, but you can still do it from there. But yeah, even as you'd said with the one that you take down, like you could just trap one of the guys like inside his house or whatever by attacking the ladder thing. Like I had figured that out like very fast, and so like
I did not.
I died the first time.
Oh, I died like 7 or 8 times in a row. I'm like, what is the deal here?
like I was already on the lookout for just trying to see what other things to interact with, and I'm like, you know what? You probably could you're trying to run away but not fight them because it makes a point to tell you how strong they are. And I was like, well, I wonder if just like attacking this one little pillar on the side of this van or whatever is just going to make the whole door close. And yep, it did. And then I was like, okay, you won. Yeah. So I thought it was all really fun to play. I mean, I don't know if Steve had anything else to add in there.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys about how it would seem like a very ambitious game. Like there, especially with the story. I have nothing against the story. I have nothing against the ambitiousness of this game. Like I think it fits, it works. Agree with what you guys have said about the art style, all that stuff and everything. It was really the controls and the camera that drove me crazy in this game. Like I wanted to keep progressing, but the controls are rough. Like boating is okay once you kind of get the hang of it. Like you guys said, it's not bad. There are some things that still annoyed me where I'm like, I'm not trying to go that way. Why did it force me that way? Or it let me go through some things, but not through other things. And it didn't really make sense. But traveling on land was so annoying to me. There's a lot of times where I'm like, I want to go this way, but sometimes it lets you and sometimes it doesn't. And in the boat, like I could forgive it more, but on land, I was like, this doesn't make sense why I cannot go this way. And so often the party members were just getting in my way because instead of like some games where they're with your party, but you're still controlling your one person, everybody follows you. And if you want to turn around, I got 3 people in my way that will not move. And I have to like, sometimes I almost got stuck because they just kept getting in my way. And then the camera, sometimes you can control it and sometimes it's static. And I feel like sometimes that I would want to control it, I can't, and other times where it's static, I'm wanting, like, it's just like, it was a pain to like play the game because I wanted to like it. I like the story, I like the art style, all those different things. But it was, for me, it was a pain to play the game. Um, I wasn't a big fan. I'm not a big fan. I've talked about this on previous podcasts and other games of grid based battles. Just not my preference. Nothing against them. That I'm not going to knock the game for it. It's my preference. I don't like that, but that's what it is. So you got to know that going into it. Unlike Barry, who was completely blindsided by it. But yeah, like if you don't like that, then that's a lot of the battles in this game. That's all the battles, and so some of them are more complicated than others. Sometimes because you don't know what you're supposed to do. And I get there's a little trial and error, and I was okay with that once I realized that you can do trial and error. But when I first initially died, I was like, oh, great. What's it going to do now? Do I have to go back and start? I don't know. And luckily, you just get to start right back where you left off. And that was nice because you're going to die because it doesn't handhold you and walk you through this. So you're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. But I was kind of bummed by that in the beginning because I was like, I don't know what to do to get past this guy. There's no way I can beat him, and didn't even realize that you could hit the edge of the canopy thing. Didn't even realize that was even a thing. I thought I had to focus on the person and didn't. Yeah. So some of those things are just weird. There's also some inconsistencies that are just strange. Like sometimes you actually have to travel from one place to another, and other times you just automatically pop up there to the next place. And sometimes, again, that like it doesn't quite make sense because it's just the island that's right over there. I've traveled further for other things, and then other times it's like, oh, we got to make this travel over here, and then you're pop up just automatically there. So it's just inconsistent, and it kind of seemed weird to me. But that's not enough to like ruin my experience. It just seemed weird. The controls were what was kind of ruining my experience, and taken away from what I did enjoy about the game.
Yeah, I can see that. I think with the characters, like the party members, I like it when games have them follow, but they're like transparent almost, like you could just run through them. Because then it's like, all right, whatever, they're there. You have a visual representation of who's in your party, but they're not impeding. And I feel like that's something that could be an easy fix should the developers want to. It's a little bit of frustrating, I agree, but it is not a deal breaker. To me, I think if you're going, if you want to play an epic RPG, I would not recommend this in for that. Like there's plenty of epic RPGs. If you want to play a game that has a really unique take on storytelling and delivery and a unique setting, and you happen to like RPGs, then think this could be up your alley. But I do agree, like Greg said, like just initial controls, little tutorial kind of thing, a sign. They could have put it into the radio and just say, hey, if you're just tuning in now, remember to hit RT to start your engine or whatever. Just had some fun with it. Like you mentioned with the battle, I died the first time doing that because I'm like, I'm gonna fight. That's what I got to do, and I got then when he like one shotted me, I was like, I realized instantly this is not a winnable fight.
Hmm.
Like that was, and I think that's why they did it, to kind of tell you you can't win this conventional. But I'm like, there's no way this is impossible to do because you need to do it for the story. So that's when I was like, what can it? Oh, and that's when
Now me,
it
I was
dawned
like,
on
nope, I'm gonna beat him. Something's gonna happen.
me.
I
You're
gotta figure
stubborn.
this out. I'm stubborn. I'm gonna beat him.
You're like Captain America. I could do this all day,
Exactly. Yep.
beating up. Yeah, I like that though. Like when battles have that kind of outside the box, where it's like, here's this boss battle, and you have to do something that you wouldn't traditionally do. I think that's really good. Of course, if you're like Greg and you figure it out instantly, it takes away the shock value. It's just like, oops, you died. Yeah, one hit kill. But it was at least comical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to intentionally one-shot it. I mean, even the game flat out told you that this guy is really strong and really upset that you're there. So it's already prepping you to, if you like read the full text and the full story thing, that it almost not meant for you to actually fight. So that's where it immediately came across like the way to try to do it a different way.
I love that you found that, because I did not. I was like, well, I gotta somehow figure it out.
See, I saw that. Not like I know, like a lot of times they say like they talk characters up, but in the beginning of the games, it's like you can still overcome it or something. So I'm like, I'll try.
Right.
Steve's like, oh, don't you tell me what I can and can't do. I'm gonna take him out.
I guess there's something I'm not getting, and there was. It just wasn't what I thought.
That's funny.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, that stuff like that, it didn't ruin my experience. I think there were some battles that were like, there was one where you're taking on, I think, the different factions, and I think you maybe even have to, this might be one you have to choose a side. But anyhow, like there kept being waves and waves of more characters coming in. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this battle. Like, it's went on way too long. Why do I have 8 waves of different characters coming in? Like, no, just like it's done. And so some of those were kind of annoying, and some of it comes in the style of, what I prefer and don't prefer in terms of my battles. But I also thought, even if you enjoy the grid-based, turn-based things, that one went way too long. Like, there shouldn't have been that many waves of new characters coming on. Game's $19.99 on the eShop. Greg, is that worth it?
I'm thinking more for like a sale price. It could potentially be worth it, at least not without some updates to make some improvements. I mean, obviously you don't want to be playing like like you were just having like a 10-minute combat just where it's like repeated waves and things like that. But I think the story is definitely very intriguing and very inviting to play more of. But as you said, like the controls is like a major hindrance, and that's where I would say it'd be kind of harder to recommend it in its current state at that full price. But perhaps like if people are able to pursue past that, that it could be definitely more worth the time, unless if they did like end up patching that kind of thing, then it probably could be justifiable at that asking price.
Yeah. Looks like 7 to 8 hours to complete it as well. Barry, any further thoughts about, is it worth it?
Yeah. I think there's a good game here. I think there's a good environment here. I think it could be tweaked just a tad to make it better. And for those reasons, I do not recommend it at $19.99, but on a sale price, if this sounds like up your alley, then absolutely. Like I said, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had. It's just minor frustrations, minor tweaks, and you know, uh, $20 might be a bit much in its current state for me.
Yeah. I agree with you guys as well. And I'd even say, like, I mean, for me, like, I would go as far as say not recommend in its current state. Like, to me, there was the traveling around and controls were rough enough where it was a drudge at times to keep playing it, even though I wanted to keep playing it. I wanted to see where the story goes. I wanted to see all this different stuff progress, but I was getting frustrated by the controls. And I think those are some things that they could patch and make the game better. And if they do, then I'll come back and say recommend. But if you're like me, like that was too much of a pain, and I'd rather not play it unless those things are fixed, even at a sale price. Maybe if it would drop down to like half off, then go ahead and try it. But for something like 20% off or something like that, I'd still say avoid it. Yeah. But we do want to thank the developers and publishers for allowing us to get this game early and give us some codes to check it out. And if you would like to see more game chats like this, make sure you subscribe to NintendoFuse here on YouTube, and also check out NintendoFuse.com, and also our industry talk and our podcast and everything else here on YouTube as well. And we'll see you next time.